We have with us Ms. Shubhrata Prakash, who is an IRS officer and works at the Niti Aayog, and is somebody who's battled depression and anxiety and has come out tops and has written a very in-depth book about her personal experience on this subject, and is a very vocal mental health champion and a warrior. Thank you so much, Shubhrata, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Shubhrata, at the outset, we see several people now coming out and talking about their experience with mental health issues, whether it's depression, anxiety, or even ADHD and a few others. But not everyone has the gravitas or the serious background that you do, where you obviously have to think a lot more about your own vulnerabilities, in terms of the position you hold, in terms of the possible ramifications of coming out and saying that, yes, I'm suffering from depression and anxiety. And tell me a little bit about what drew you to be able to talk about it. How did you draw the courage, and what was that process like?
Okay. This takes me back to about 2014 when I was in the depths of depression. I had very severe depression, and to the extent that I had to actually take leave from work because I was not even able to go to work. And I was just looking at ways of getting better. And I used to spend hours and hours, because naturally, if, when I was not working, what would I do? So I would spend hours and hours just surfing the net, looking at and trying to understand what is depression, what is anxiety, what is happening to me, and why am I this person who cannot function anymore? I used to be this really dynamic person who got so far in life just because of who I was. And then suddenly I'm a different person. I don't recognize myself if I look in the mirror right now. So I was at that stage, and one of the suggestions that came from my family and my therapist was to express myself more, because I'd always been a very creative person, and I used to write. Even as a small child, I would write poetry and stories, and a short play also I had written once when I was like 8 or 9. So everyone was trying to push me to write something, because they thought that that would be good for my self-worth as well as for expressing myself, the blockages in my creativity or expression. So that is the time I started a blog, and then later on I was looking around for someone to publish a book for me, which I would write. And luckily I found my publishers, and they were very happy to see, they saw my writing and they said that, yes, we would like you to write a book for us. So when the book was happening, then the thing that came up next was, okay, what do I write about? And I thought for a long time, and whichever way I thought, it was writing about depression, about my own experience, was absolutely top of the mind. I could not push it out of my head at that point of time. Now, the reasons for this were absolutely, there's lots of reasons for that. Number one was that the awareness about depression or mental health or mental disorders is abysmally low in society. Yeah. So much so that, I myself, missed my diagnosis. Like, I did not get diagnosed for 5 years. I had been suffering with depression. I was suffering in silence for 5 years. I was not diagnosed because my family and I just didn't know what was depression. So that was one thing. The second thing, the stigma around depression, and it's not just lack of awareness, it's also the misconceptions. Like it's very widely believed in society that if you have depression, you're just very sad, and you are a weak person who's not able to handle all the pressures, or whatever is happening in your life is kind of beyond your control. You're not able to handle it well, and it's a lazy way of saying that you have depression. And people used to come and see me, you know how it is when someone is not well, so people come and see you, and then they would say that, oh, it's all in your mind, and just get up and move, and come and see me and go for a walk and you will feel better. So all that kind of absolutely unsolicited but extremely unhelpful advice was coming my way. And what happens is that depression brings invisible disability. Sure. People cannot see the disability in the mind. So if I'm not able to move, people would understand that something is wrong in my brain, and that is why I'm not able to move. So this is the signal that goes out to anyone who's suffering from depression. And in my case, because I had been researching, so I had some idea that, okay, there's something wrong in my brain. But most people who do not have that perspective, it hampers recovery for them, because they're constantly getting this negative message from society and, even their caregivers and their immediate family, that something is wrong with them. Yeah. Wrong in the sense that they are lazy, and they are not, they also, I also used to wonder often that, okay, yes, what everyone is saying is fine, that I look all right, everything is all right in my life, why am I feeling this way, why am I not able to get up and be the person I used to be? So that is what was happening, and that hampers recovery to a large extent. So these two were the main factors that made me decide that, okay, if I'm writing a book, I want to write about mental health, I want to write a book about depression, and I want to tell everyone my story about how I have been struggling from day to day just to survive, and how hard I have been trying to get better. And it's not laziness, it's not weakness of character. Character is something builds over a period of time. How can I, in a few years, go from being who I was to a weak person? That's not true. So all this is what I wanted to put across, and that is why I decided to write the book and talk about my experience.
Well, thank you that you did the book, because clearly, like I said, coming from you, I think it puts the story into a whole different perspective. For all the leaders, the business leaders, corporates, professionals, everyone watching this, I think the one big message we should try and endeavor to pass on is that if somebody like you can have the courage, even after having gone through depression and anxiety, anxiety can be debilitating, and one of the biggest fallouts is lack of confidence, when you're in that zone. And for you to be able to then say that, no, I will be able to talk about this and without feeling ashamed, itself is a major victory, right? And it can be a source of inspiration and motivation for everyone watching this to say, I can too ask for help. It doesn't mean that I need to go out on television and talk about it or write a blog about it. But at the basic level, I should be able to ask for help, acknowledge that this is something which is not normal, and it's something that I can deal with in a professional manner and get help.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, if you read a lot of my articles, I keep writing on various platforms, and also I keep tweeting a lot about my experiences. And I keep saying that, I had this and I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. I keep saying this because I feel that maybe if I keep saying this, someone else will see that, and it'll somehow, the message will go out that this is an illness and there's nothing to be ashamed about. Does anyone feel ashamed of having diabetes or hypertension or fever? Nobody is made to feel ashamed of having any physical disorder. And when it comes to mental disorders, there is definitely a physical correlate in the brain, which of course is not so visible right now because of the level of research that we are. Like, I was just thinking about it the other day that earlier we used to only talk theoretically about black holes. No one had seen black holes because the whole idea was that you cannot see a black hole. Nothing comes out of it, not even light. And then look at us now in the 21st century. Last year, NASA actually held out a picture of what a black hole probably looks like. So similarly, we cannot see so much inside the brain right now with the tools that we have, although there is progress and a lot of neurological research is happening. And at a certain level, we do have some neurological correlates of mental disorders right now. But there, of course, it's all very, I would say, exploratory. Nothing is really decisive right now. No research has come out and emphatically and decisively said that this is what happens. But yes, just like we have the picture of the black hole today, maybe we'll have a clearer picture of the brain and what's happening inside it. And just because you cannot see it doesn't mean that you need to be made to feel ashamed of having it.
Absolutely. Given your experience, Subrata, would you also then say that it is now time for us as a society, and especially at an organizational level, to start looking at mental fitness, mental, well-being as a precursor, so that we can all avoid getting into a mental illness situation, right? So whether it is, better, environment around us to be able to talk to people, from a preventive angle, also in terms of exercise, diet, fitness, whatever we can do to make sure that we remain at a conscious level, happier, and, in a zone that we can stay away from a mental illness.
Absolutely. We need to take mental health a little more seriously as a society. And this is something that I keep talking about. Because usually when people say the word health, it sort of implies physical health. And very few people kind of take that term to cover mental health. Whereas mental health is health. It's a part of health. And whether it's your physical health or it's mental health, health itself is a spectrum. And at any point of time, if you take the spectrum, there is wellness at one end and there is illness at the other. And the way I see it is that whether it's physical or mental, any person is somewhere on this spectrum at any given point of time. Nobody is perfectly healthy all the time, 24/7. It's just not possible. Everyone, someday you will feel a little more energetic, someday a little dull, even in terms of physical fitness and health. So definitely this is something that another message that needs to go out into society, that this health itself, the term extends over to mental health, and any point of time, anyone can be anywhere on this. Now, as a society, our endeavor should definitely always be to keep as many people on the wellness part of the spectrum as possible, whether it's physical or mental. And we take so much of care about, of our physical health, like exercise, etc., eating, diet. Now, of course, all of that also affects our mental health. And there have been studies which have found clear linkage between, exercise and mental health and having a healthy way of looking at things. So that is another thing that we need to keep talking about. And as far as the preventive aspect is concerned, my personal view is that, well, a lot of times, even if it is physical health, we take all the precautions, but still it's not possible to 100% keep yourself illness proof. Once in a while, yes. I mean, I took all the precautions till I got COVID. It happens. It just happens. I'm just saying this now because it's topical, but but that doesn't mean that we don't take the precautions. We take everything. We take precautions with our diet, with exercise, with cutting down stress in our life. We do all of that for our physical health. And I think it's very important to do the same for our mental health. And that is where the practices for good mental health hygiene would be different. Some people may find some activity de-stressing, somebody may find another activity de-stressing, because I keep mentioning de-stressing because there is a lot of research that also shows that stress is one of the major reasons for physical disorders as well as mental disorders. And again, the causative mechanism, like exactly how that happens is not clear right now. What all processes take place inside the brain when you have a lot of stress, but the causative mechanism, even if it is not known, the correlational equation is definitely there. So again, like, different mental health hygiene practices, like some people would say that, you must exercise every day. Meditation works for some people, may not work for everyone. That is another thing, that these things are again very personal. And yeah, some people in fact report getting triggered by meditation, but for someone like me, it works. So you have to figure out, just like uniquely you figure out which are the practices that help keeping you physically healthy, you also have to figure out how to keep yourself mentally healthy. What are the practices there?
Great. Subrata, thank you so much. We've come to the end of the session, but I think you should not say that you're just a mental health survivor. You're a mental health champion, a warrior. And
Thank you.
it's a message that you're able to spread just by being who you are, and the action of being able to talk about it. So more power to you, and may your tribe grow.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for this opportunity to reach out to people and spread the message that if you have a mental disorder, don't be ashamed. It's just okay to not be okay.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.